and download the judges ballot for international speech contest and evaluation contest. Although these are judges ballot meant for judging, but they also give a excellent format to construct a evaluation that would be insightful, that would really help your target speaker improve in certain areas of his or her speech. So for example, let us look at the left hand side of the screen. So this is a snippet from the judges ballot of international speech contest. As you can see, the first point is speech development. So first up, what we can observe is what was the structure of the speech like. And when I say structure, there are just three key words. Did the speech have a beginning, a body, and an end? And was it easy to visualize this structure through the speaker's delivery? So first up is speech development, and the key word here is structure. Did the speech had good structure? Next up is effectiveness. So when you start listening to a speech, you are able to gauge in a minute or two, or in 2 to 3 minutes, with what the speech is about. Where would the speech be going? What is the superficial, high-level theme of the speech? Once you have understood that, once you have figured that out, you can then make an assessment of whether the speaker was able to achieve the purpose of the speech. So if I don't know what today's test speaker Toastmaster Harkirat will speak about, but for sure the content might be motivational or humorous or entertaining or informational, or it could be of any other style. But once we have established the high level theme of the speech, then we can assess by the end of the speech whether the speaker has been able to achieve his purpose or not, and comment on it during our evaluation speech. And then you can see on the screen speech value. And here it is written ideas, logic, original thought. So how valuable was the speech? Let us take the oft repeated theme of motivation. Hundreds of thousands of speakers talk about motivation, but then there are hundreds of thousands of unique ways to motivate people. So was there something unique in the speech due to which the message popped out, due to which the message became impactful, due to which the audience became receptive towards the message? So this is another area which we can evaluate a speech on. What was the value of the speech like? What if a speaker, say Toastmaster Harkirat, starts talking about solar cookers? If he just starts talking about solar cookers and how it would help in reducing our electricity bill in the long run, I may or may not buy it, and it would remain just an informative speech. But if Toastmaster Harkirat also talks about the environmental impact of using solar cookers, how not using solar cookers can be a danger to our immediate environment, then the message will hit home much harder, and then the speech would automatically become much more valuable. So speech value is something we can notice and comment about in our evaluation speech. And then comes the physical aspects of the speech, the bodily aspects of the speech. So as you would have noted, I talked about Shweta's hand gestures, her smile, the crests and troughs in her voice, and the next 2 points are actually physical and voice. The body language conveys a lot in a speech. Let's take an example. Many people say that Shah Rukh Khan does repetitive roles. He opens his arms in every movie, and that is kind of a signature Shah Rukh Khan style. And he does it over and over again. But many people find it attractive over and over again, probably because that body language exudes a feeling of embracing someone. It exudes openness, it exudes confidence. So through body language, you are able to say a lot. And then when it comes to voice is used for emotions and for emphasis. To convey emotions, voice can be modulated. To emphasize on any point that you want the audience to focus on, you can modulate your voice accordingly. So physical and voice are extremely important. Imagine you are in a business meeting pitching your business to potential investors, and you show up wearing t-shirt and jeans with flip-flops. You probably won't get the deal. You probably won't get the funding. But if you are dressed formally with shirt, trousers, and a blazer with polished black shoes, then you certainly will at least have put a good first impression on your potential investor. So appearance matters a lot, because that is how your target audience may or may not take you seriously. Then comes the manner. And in the manner section, for me, the operative word is enthusiasm, and I'll talk about other words as well, like confidence, conviction, etc. But enthusiasm. Hey, the speaker has to be interested in speaking. Only then the listeners will be interested in listening. So, and speaking with enthusiasm is extremely important. In the same breath, I would say that speaking with sincerity is also very important. And of course, having confidence and conviction is also very important. And I will talk about these words in much more detail as we move ahead in today's presentation. Appropriateness. The speech has to be relevant for the audience. Imagine you are giving a speech in a school to school students, say 11th and 12th graders, and you actually start talking about the professional life and how business is conducted in a professional setup, rather than talking about how should they make career decisions at a collegiate level. You might not have your audience's attention for too long if you directly start talking about a couple of steps higher, or about a point, or about a part of life that they will come to in a few years time. So the speech has to be appropriate, and of course correctness. English language is the building block of any speech, or let me say that language is the building block of any speech. And if only we are able to put those building blocks in proper order, glue them with gluing agent, only then we will be able to construct a beautiful building. So yes, language is extremely important. So this was the judges ballot for international speech contest, and it gives us a very good idea of the parameters on which we can evaluate the speech. So if any one of you is thinking right now that what should I evaluate the speech on, then you have got about 10 points written here. You can read these. You can pick up 2 to 3 points out of these 10 points and evaluate the speech on those 2-3 points. Now look at the right hand side of the screen. This is a snippet of the judges ballot of the evaluation contest. So how should an evaluation be? The evaluation should be analytical, and evaluation should have some recommendations which are positive and helpful. Helpful means that you are actually coming up with how to improve the areas that you are asking the speaker to improve upon. And the technique should be sympathetic, sensitive, and motivational. So this is the important part. That is why I have put an arrow here between recommendations and technique, because when you start stating the areas of improvement, it becomes even more important to have a sympathetic tone, to have a tone of support and motivation, that hey, you can improve in these areas by trying out these things. Only then will the recommendation be taken in a positive manner. And finally, summation. It is extremely important to pack everything up, things which were good, the areas of improvement, and the way forward when you are concluding your speech evaluation. All right, now, do we have any questions up until now? Would anyone like to share any opinion, any thoughts up until now? I should turn on my gallery. Okay, I don't see any raised hands or anything. All right then, we'll move on. But I still have to ask the audience, have all of you seen these two evaluation forms? How many of you have seen these two evaluation forms? A raise of hands. Shweta has seen it. And if anyone would like to raise their hands through Zoom, have you seen these two forms? All right. Okay. Well, who said no?
I said, Abhishek.
Abhishek, for full disclosure, I have been a part of Toastmasters since past many years, and even I didn't see these forms for the first 2-3 years, even though I was evaluating speeches. So it's okay. Now that we have seen these forms, we will leverage the information given in these forms to construct better evaluations within and outside Toastmasters. Let's move on now. So there are some objective aspects of an evaluation. First up, we will talk about commendations. Commendations means what worked well. Now, a speech has to be a story, or has to have a story. The speech most often has a situation a speech many a times has characters. The characters may be part of a story, or the characters may be people from real life. The situation could be an imaginary made up situation or a real life situation. The story could be an imaginary situation, imaginary story, or a real life, or a story inspired from real life. So when we talk of a speech in terms of story, characters and situation, then the following words start making sense: emotions, relatability, ease of understanding, impact, hooking the audience or drawing in the audience, and imagery. I have highlighted these words because while crafting an evaluation, the commendations might come from these words. Because according to me, these are the most important aspects of a speech. Was the speech high on emotional content, high on emotional quotient? If the EQ of a speech is high, chances are that your audience would be fully engaged with the speech, fully immersed in the speech, and then, of course, the chances of hitting your message home increase exponentially. So, how high was the emotional quotient of the speech? That is one part which you could look at while evaluating a speech. Then comes the relatability. We just took one example wherein Toastmaster Mehak used the word IKEA. Now, many of the people within India might still not have heard of IKEA, even though it's a famous international brand. And using a local brand like Big Bazaar might have made her story or parallelism more relatable. So, coming up with relatable themes is extremely important in a speech. And when you are observing a speech, you can look at this part, whether the theme, whether the story, the speech, the characters, the ambience, the environment of the speech was relatable. Many people talk about failures in college, failures in relationships. These are relatable themes. People talk about going for long distance running or endurance running. People talk about trekking. These are relatable themes. People talk about commute to work and travel in other forms. These are relatable themes. But many a times people talk about very narrow subjects which are specific to only their life. For example, traveling business class in Air India and the problems faced there. Now, yes, many people do take flights for commute, but the percentage of people who have experience of a business class in Air India would be quite less. So we have to try to construct, first of all, construct a speech in a relatable manner, and we can again focus on the relatability quotient of a speech and comment on it during our evaluation. Ease of understanding. A speech should be easy to understand because we have only 5 to 7 minutes with our audience, at most 10 to 15 minutes if we are going for an advanced project in Toastmasters. But if the speech is not easy to understand, your audience will lose you. The audience will lose interest, and any momentum or impact that you have built upon your audience will also fizzle away. So focus on the ease of understanding of the speech and comment on it during your evaluation. Then comes the impact. How impactful was the speech? Are you trying to motivate someone to lose weight? So was the speech so impactful that you have moved 2 or 3 people in your audience to get up and go to the gym for weight loss? So you have to think about the impact that a speech has on the audience. And then comes the hooking the audience or drawing in the audience. This is usually at the beginning of the speech. Many people use shock and awe in order to hook their audience. For example, in one of the international speech contest final, the winner Mohammad Khatani took out a cigarette from the pocket of his blazer and was about to light a cigarette on stage. So that was a hook. In yet another example of international speech contest final, the winner Dhananjay Hitayarachi had a dustbin on the stage, and he took out a rose from that stage, from the dustbin, started removing petals, and by the end of the speech, the rose did not have any petals, but he again went back into the dustbin and took out another rose which was whole. So these are hooks for the audience, and the audience really look for closing the loop and connecting the dots when it comes to hooks. And of course, there are other ways of drawing the audience in. Then comes the visual imagery part. Are you able to paint a picture with your words? I was walking through the mountains. There was waterfall on one side, and there was a deep gorge on the other side. My four-wheeler was Passing by a narrow road, I was constantly in fear of my life, but seeing the snow-capped mountains just a few kilometers away gave me the strength of carrying on that road. So are you able to create a picture with your words? This is another part that you could comment on while delivering an evaluation. And then comes the body language and vocal variety. So in order to keep the audience engaged, first up, you engage the audience at the beginning of your speech. Now you want to keep them engaged throughout the speech. This is where gestures, hand movements, eye contact, and body language come into picture. It strengthens your connect with the audience. Vocal variety does the same thing, and voice is used to emphasize, to emote. And as they say, silence sometimes speaks louder than words. So using pauses effectively can also enhance the impact of your speech. So I'm talking about aspects, attributes that you can look for in a speech while constructing an evaluation. The last part is about the building blocks, which is language, wordplay, and sentence construction. You can very well construct a humorous speech by playing with words smartly, and you can construct sentences in a way that makes the speech easy to understand. Many a times the sentences that we write are long and convoluted. It makes it difficult for the speaker to remember and difficult for the audience to understand. So this also comes with experience, that you construct mid-sized sentences which convey a message but at the same time are easy to understand. And finally, the message and the theme. You can comment on the message, the theme of a particular speech. Whatever we talked about up until now, you can go into specifics of two or three of the above points while drafting commendations, and always substantiate commendations with examples, because we want our evaluation to be an insight and not just an observation. We do not want to just say that the speaker spoke this in point 1, 2, and 3. We want to say something like, the speaker was able to create a visual imagery because of so and so, because of point 1. The speaker was able to emotionally connect with the audience because of point 2. The speaker's message was very well received by the audience because of point 3. We want our evaluation to always be insightful and not a mere observation. Moving on, let us talk about recommendations. Now, when talking about recommendations, we can go for the approach that I have written right here. Just ask yourself, did the title of the speech represent the theme appropriately? If it did, comment the speaker, otherwise it becomes an area of improvement. Did the speech have a clear context in the beginning? If yes, comment the speaker, otherwise this becomes an area of improvement. Did the speech have a concise conclusion with a call to action? If yes, praise the speaker for it, otherwise add it in your recommendations list. Was the speech cohesive and consistent? Did the speech adhere to and fulfill project objectives? I have written optional here because right now we are talking about a generic evaluation of a generic speech. Also, look at the cues, quotient, engagement quotient, confidence quotient, conviction quotient, credibility quotient of the speech. How engaging was the speech? Was the speaker able to engage upfront and then lost the audience's attention, or was the engagement throughout? How was the confidence of the speaker like? Was the speaker confident throughout the speech or in patches? What was the conviction of the speaker like when he or she was speaking? Because conviction plays a very important role in keeping the audience with you, so that the audience looks at you and listens to the words that you are saying. Credibility. Was the speaker able to establish some credibility? So again, let's take the example of solar cooker, and let's say Toastmaster Harkirat starts talking about solar cooker. But if he mentions that I have done masters in sustainability engineering, if he says that I have done masters in sustainability engineering and I champion the cause of sustainable development, then we would probably appreciate the things coming out of his mouth much more when he talks about solar cooker. So was the speaker able to establish credibility in any way? If yes, then commend the speaker, otherwise add it in the area of improvement. And finally, again, I'm talking about critical analysis. Analyze the speech critically. Were there distracting elements in the speech? I'll give you an example. What if a speaker is using mobile phone to refer notes? That to me personally is distracting. I would much rather have the speaker hold a small piece of paper with bullet points written on it, and that I find less distracting. Were there elements which weakened the speech? Were there elements which strengthened the speech? Were there elements which were very, very impactful in the speech? So I have given you around 10 pointers around which you can craft your recommendations. Of course, around these points, you can also write down some commendations. But then again, be mindful of the fact that when you write commendations, go in depth and go in depth, and always recommend, always state how do you propose the speaker to improve in the areas that you want him or her to improve on. Moving on, let us move on to the operational aspects of a speech. Now this is the simpler part. We will run through it in a few minutes. So I'll stop sharing my screen for a brief moment, and anyone wants to say anything, share their opinion midway, because I am almost done. We are now going to look at the operational aspects of evaluation, which are just boilerplate stuff. But do you want to share your opinion, say something, ask something? Anyone? You can raise your hand. Shweta.
So I have one question. First of all,
Yeah.
thanks a lot for an amazing presentation. Got to learn something new always from you. So one thing is there, when you say that we are giving, there could be like commendation and recommendation both on the points that we talked about, right? If it was concise or not, if it was up to the point or not, or if it was concluding in the best way or not. What should we do when sometimes, we are like, sometimes we hear a speech, it's really great, right? And it is very difficult to actually recommend over there. During that time, what part of the speech should we take care of? Right? Obviously, there should be a story, but we are so, like, I would say, bowled over by the speech. But still, if there has to be some recommendation to be given, that time, what should we take care of? What critical aspect should be taken care of in an excellent speech, I would say?
All right. Great question. So we are talking about an excellent speech in which it's extremely difficult to find out areas of improvement. Well, when we are faced with such a tough task, Shweta, I think what helps is a checklist. And the kind of presentation that I shared is kind of like a checklist. So maybe the speech was good, but the title did not match with the theme. There also could be a question of credibility. All the 10 points that I have mentioned, if you are really want to analyze an excellent speech and still come up with some fruitful, some solid arguments or areas of improvement, I think then you will have to probably recall all the 10 points that I have mentioned. And I'm sure that you will find some or the other aspect which could be improved upon. It could be credibility, it could be an excellent speech would have the speaker speaking with confidence, with conviction. The engagement would be there. I give you that. The speech would be cohesive and consistent. I give you that. The conclusion is something even a good speech or an excellent speech can work upon. So you can probably look at the conclusion. You can look at the title of the speech. You can look at the credibility of the speaker. All right, and so you will have to be even more critical. You can look at the appearance of the speaker, the dressing sense of the speaker. You could look at the vocal projection of the speaker. Chances are even that would be excellent, but then you have to be even more critical, and probably then recall all the 10 points that I have just mentioned, and you will be able to come up with something or the other, something fruitful, not just for the heck of it. So then in order to provide a good fruitful recommendation. Yeah. And what about, shall we go to Toastmaster Bhavna?
Yeah, she has a question.
I found this session very informative, and I have not been participating in the meetings often because of some kind of hesitation that how I would go ahead with my roles. And the only question which I would like to ask is, whatever you have shared was very informative, but I couldn't note it down. So how can I follow it up, whatever you have presented? And so this is my concern.
Oh, you will get the material. Don't worry about that. Yeah.
That
So, and I see that 30 minutes are already up. So I will quickly wrap up the presentation because I am anyways done with the important part of the presentation. And now we'll look at just some operational aspects and some formatting which we have to do in our evaluation. Moving on. So operational aspects. This is boilerplate stuff, but we should still remember it because it helps craft a solid evaluation. Refer the speaker. You could refer the speaker by name or with the prefix Toastmaster. So Toastmaster Shweta spoke very well. We could have said the speaker spoke very well. The speaker displayed confidence during the speech. Or we can simply refer the speaker by name. Personally, I think that it helps establish a connect when we address someone by their first name. So Shweta was fantastic with the role introduction of the table topic session and so on and so forth. Address the audience. Always address the audience. For 99% of the times, address the audience. So dear Toastmasters, friends, ladies and gentlemen, etc. Address the speaker sparingly, because while delivering an evaluation speech, we are primarily addressing the audience and just referring to the speaker so that we have the speaker's attention as well. So sparingly address the speaker to add more empathy and connect to your Toastmaster, to your evaluation speech. And eye contact, or you could even if you don't want to address the speaker through your words, a little eye contact or just looking at the speaker, even that is enough to create a connected atmosphere in the room that you are sitting in. And of course, you know the format, CRC. It commendations, recommendations, commendations. You can go for a couple of commendations, couple of recommendations, and then maybe one more commendation, and ultimately summarizing the evaluation speech. The next operational aspect of a speech, of any speech, is transitions. Some people find transitions difficult. I certainly used to find them difficult. So, but transitions are a tricky thing. All we need to be aware of are connecting words and connecting phrases. So from when we are moving from, say, commendations to recommendations, we can use the connector words while, however, although the speaker demonstrated great vocal variety, but too much of it made the speech a little distracting at certain points. While the speech was being spoken at a very brisk pace, I noticed a sudden drop in energy then in the middle portion of the middle portion of the speech, something like that. So this is how you can transition from commendations to recommendations. And then another example of transitioning from commendations to recommendations would be to further engage the audience, I recommend. To further entertain the audience, I recommend. To further explain the audience, the speaker can. To further emphasize the point that the speaker was talking about, so and so. So this is another way to transition from commendations to recommendations. Moving on, then if we want to come back from recommendations to commendations, we can use but. An esteemed friend of mine, a respected friend of mine, recently told that nothing good comes after but sometimes good things can come after but. So while the speaker was speaking at a very low volume, but the speaker more than made up for it with a warm smile and animated hand gestures. So we can use but to pivot. We can also use the phrase returning to, or we can just start another sentence with friends, fellow Toastmasters, and ladies and gentlemen, just starting another sentence which has some commendations in it. And of course, we all know in order to summarize a speech, we can use the word overall to sum up, in conclusion, all in all. Finally, some embellishments. Many a times we are enamored by the way certain people speak because their language is so polished. They have got quotes and idioms and phrases and crafty ways of constructing sentences. I call all these things embellishments, and that is why it is one of the last slides in my presentation, because it is just embellishment and nothing more. The evaluation can still be impactful without embellishments, but let us still talk about it. You can begin an evaluation with an idiom or a snippet from the speech. You can close the evaluation with a callback to the speech or a character in the speech. That would be a good add-on. You can go for comparisons like as powerful as MS Dhoni's sixer, or as majestic as an elephant, as beautiful as a dancing peacock during rains. Or you can go for analogies, and today analogies and parallelisms, and Mehak gave a fantastic example of it up front. So I have highlighted the word analogies because I think analogies can be super effective when you are trying to embellish your evaluation speech and when you want to create extra added impact through your evaluation speech. Finally, there are many methods to evaluate, but of course we have to have commendations, recommendations in our evaluation speech. But you could craft your evaluation based on content and delivery. Talk about the good things and area of improvement in the content. Talk about the good things and area of improvement vis-a-vis delivery, and then summarize. You can go for a bespoke evaluation. Talk with the speaker before and discuss the areas that the speaker wants the evaluator to focus on, and just evaluate around that. That would be another great effective way of evaluating during club meetings especially. Of course, you can evaluate around project objectives, and then there would be a generic evaluation which we just talked about. So lastly, in order to summarize the session, remember to always evaluate with empathy. There should be this want within you that whatever I speak with the help of my limited knowledge should help my target speaker in some way or the other. Just have that feeling within you. You will definitely be able to come up with good points in your evaluation. Evaluate with the intent to add value. Employ the left side of the brain. That means analyze the speech critically. Also employ the right side of your brain. Analyze the impact, look at the impact and emotional quotient of your speech, and finally earnestly listen to peers. So we learn the most by listening to other evaluators, other speakers. Notice how other people are evaluating and pick up things from them and add it to your own style. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen, and thank you so much for listening to me for what, 35 minutes? My God.